before we get into the film itself, I have a question for Matthew. Every time I look for pictures of John, he's smiling. Every time I've seen him in person, he's smiling. I want to hear a story about John losing his temper on set.
He actually didn't lose his temper on this set, but there have been several sets where I've seen him lose his shit, and mostly it's because we're way behind. Why directors generally lose their shit because of clusterfuckery on one level or another that shouldn't have happened, or he can't find his pack of American Spirits. That kind of plays into it too sometimes. But overall, we call him, his nickname in the community is the Pied Piper, because he is always laughing. I mean, even in the worst of circumstances, he tends to smile into the storm, which makes it a lot easier. We shot this entire movie in 15 days. And it was and only 12-hour days for 15 days, not the typical 28-hour indie film production days. It was 12 days and 15 days. We had only that with everybody's schedule to get it and get it all. And we did, and we couldn't have done that without the Pied Piper's leadership. So yeah, he'll lose his shit. It just depends on what.
Does he throw things?
Oh no.
So John, when I think of your films, since you came here the first time, I think of the tag they put on the Swamp Thing comics that community is sophisticated suspense for adults. The films you've shown me, including the one you didn't let us have, they took to a different vessel. They've all been very mature. They're not jokey. Am I missing films of yours where you're going in that direction?
No, I don't think so. I'm not just, I started off, American Nightmare was my first movie as a horror movie, and I didn't intend to be a filmmaker. I was a journalist. I had written a screenplay with the idea that I was just going to try to sell it and not know any better. And Brent Stevens, actually, she had read it, and she's like, you should go make this. And I was friends with Brent, I was friends with Jody Rashawn, and I was like, oh, okay, sure, why not? And a year later, we put the movie together, and we did it, and did really well, and I keep doing horror for the most part. But even within the horror, as a filmmaker, I'm most interested in telling stories about human beings. And me, myself, I'm a recovering drug addict. I've been clean for 29 years. And sort of in that recovery of getting clean, the darkness within is something that's always kind of interested me, intrigued me, the things that drive it from the inside out. So the human monster is what kind of intrigues me, and I tend to gravitate towards telling stories about the human monster, about the darkness within, and I just try to tell a really good story, and that's kind of what I gravitate towards.
This is obviously a psychological piece. So you mentioned abbreviated shooting style. I'm guessing that this was a bitch to edit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about Steve real quick. So our editor, Steve Baker, Steve and Matt go way back, and this was the first movie Steve has edited a bunch of movies that Matt has produced before. This was my first time working with Steve as well, and we knew kind of what we wanted to do with it visually and some of the things we wanted to create, and Matt has been for years going on and on about Steve and Steve's big brain and Steve's big talent and stuff. And so once we had the bones of the edit down, we were like, all right, let's just let Steve go now. And so particularly all the sort of the Twitch stuff and the visual effects and all that kind of stuff was going on. That was something where we kind of knew where we wanted to put stuff, and some of it organically grew during the edit process. But I mean, the edit, honestly, I think those little pieces took the longest, little 4-second pieces that took Steve 2 or 3 days to edit at a time. But the edit was, I had the whole movie shot in my head. And I think that's why we were able to do it so quickly was, I walked in knowing what my shots were, what my edits were, and just had to let Steve know, here's how you put the movie together, and then elevate it. And that's what we did. So actually, I think the edit actually went pretty well.
Because that's a tight schedule for a 90-minute movie. This is 2 hours and 5.
For the moment.
For the moment, yeah.
The thing I wanted to say, maybe just the last word about Steve Baker. He has been my only editor with all the other films I produced, none of which, by the way, before we sort of joined forces, were in the horror genre. But Steve, if you can imagine Woody Allen if he were about 6'2", that's Steve, incredibly neurotic and sometimes, I mean, just completely bubbled in his apartment, sitting in front of his computer that close to it with his, glasses down the bridge of his nose and his two cats sitting on either shoulder with his bony knees on either side like Gollum in his cave. But he is a genius in his own weird, sort of effed up way. And I love him. I call him the film Buddha just because he, as I told John, we can get plenty of cutters. I mean, we both know lots of cutters on both coasts, but Steve, I mean, he pours like, and everyone says it, but he just pours so much of his soul into every edit that he literally lives and dies with them, and he's got this encyclopedic understanding of film, not just the horror genre, but film in general. But he's just a fascinating cat to know, and he also happens to be sort of this secret weapon that we have, back in Oak Cliff in Dallas, Texas. So yeah, we love him. We love him.
You mentioned geography, so John, you're from California, you live in Colorado, and now you're partnered in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
And Matthew, you're straight Texas?
No. Born in D.C., raised in Oklahoma City, college in Seattle, New York City for 5 years, and Dallas.
Yeah, and I was raised in California, and I always joke that I left California to become a filmmaker. So, yeah, I ended up in Dallas. Dallas is where I was the journalist at, and started filmmaking there, and then just good circumstance allowed me to live in Colorado while I continued to work. I still consider Dallas home base.
And we had both been making movies for a while, and everyone in town kept trying to push us together. John, you got to be back. John, and he came to a couple of the sets I was on that he wasn't a part of, and we met and didn't make a huge impression on each other until, we talked enough that he got a movie called Living and Dying, way back in 2005, and cast me in it. We first started working together, and then he's like, I love the kinds of movies you make. I don't traffic in those movies. And I'm like, I don't traffic in those movies. I kind of liked it. And so when we came to do the Harrowing, he said, well, I'm going to try to write a movie that sort of combines the best of what we both enjoy. For lack of a better term, sort of the thinking man's, psychological horror thriller. We wanted it to be a bit of an art house horror thriller, if that makes sense, with all of the tentpoles of horror that'll appeal sort of to the hardcore fan base, but with an idea of appealing to a much broader audience because of the emotional content and the character development. And so he wrote it for me, and then I found the money, and we put it together and crewed it up and cast it and shot it like a hurricane, and then spent a year editing it. And you are only the second audience to see it. We premiered it. We had a big Texas filmmaker showcase down in Dallas, just for the cast and crew and for all the folks that were part of it, and they loved it. But we are just now beginning to open the doors and pat it on its ass and let it out into the world, And so this was really fascinating to feel the audience watch it.
John, I think every film I've seen from you has looked different than the other ones, but this one was way different than the other ones. So you went with the really saturated colors, and what was some of the thinking behind some of the choices you did with the color?
Honestly, Matt was actually a big advocate behind that. We knew that because of the visual style we were taking with the editing, we wanted to do something visually with the color saturation as well. And so we had ideas about it, and then Matt and I, that's one of the things I think we work so well together is we complement each other, but we've also got very different ideas. And so he might go extreme in one direction, I'll go extreme in the other, and then we find a middle ground that I think works really well. And color actually, I think, was really one of those areas where I was probably initially going to keep it a little bit more normal, conservative, still pushing it a little bit, but not much. Matt wanted to go probably a bunch more extreme than that, and then we kind of pulled back, and then we started to sort of balance out the ideas of color throughout based on the way the editing was going. And as Steve kind of played with the edits and the staccatos and the twitch effects and stuff and what he was doing there, what we finally did, and we still got some more passes we're going to do on this. There's a few things we're going to tweak, but that's pretty close for the color. And we just felt like we wanted to give it something, just the entire movie itself. Is the movie real? Is the story real? Is the world real? And we kind of go with that color.
The demons, how much of that was practical and how much of it was CG?
It was 100% practical. Yeah, it was 100% practical. Yeah, Josh Fred and Andy Aerosmith, two amazing designers down in Dallas, both trained in LA and then moved to Dallas, and we've known and worked with them for years, but that was 100% too. With the one exception of the scene in the room where Calhoun and the demon are face to face with each other in the psych, when he's losing his mind. we just added a little visual effect of like some smoky wisps coming off, even though that was still the demon scimitar. So yeah, demon was
And the opening gunfight is CG, obviously, throughout, other than that.
But yeah, demon was complete, everything was practical.
And that's an extra burden on that tight schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, so the in the scene in the therapy room, Tom Zembrod, the one who says, you know, starts accusing him and talks about the demons and he attacks him. That's Tom is the demon. Tom is the one playing the demon around the movie. So he's a stuntman and a character actor down in Dallas. And so we kind of asked him to do the demon, and I was like, hey, at least if you did this other character, you can see your face for a minute too.
Yeah, we just happened to catch Michael and Arnold Ironside in Oslo. Michael had just come back from Poland and had a hole, and we caught Oslo on his way to hike up to the top of the mountain by himself. And John literally came down far enough where he could get reception, and John pitched it to him, and they both were like, yeah, we'd love to do it, and they were both awesome to work with. We had a great time with them, both of them. Arnold's chief form of communication throughout, and then, I mean, literally for the week he was with us, the entire time he was with us, beyond his lines, really all you could ever get from him was a, I mean, and that basically was the summation of his response to everything. Are you hungry? Yeah, how was the shoot? I mean, it was really fascinating. So everybody would constantly looking at Arnold going, And he goes, I mean, it's pretty fun. And Michael, I'm sure there may be even some people in the room who've worked with Michael before. He has a bit of a reputation of being there on set sometimes, and I came to feel that he could be that way if he feels like the folks he's working with don't know what they're doing. But if he doesn't feel the need to insert himself in that way, he's a dream to work with. And I thought he was perfect for, had a great time today.
So second film, is it just the second film with Ironside for you?
Second is the director, third is the producer.
Okay. So he's like part of the stage
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
So
Matter of
now
fact,
positive.
yeah, matter of fact, Arnold was texting me earlier and said to tell everybody hello. I mean, Michael was texting me earlier and said to tell everybody hello. So, yeah, just to hear how the screen went. But yeah, Michael and I become good friends. Michael, just on his little quick side, and he's very open about it, he's been in recovery for 30 plus years as well. And that's actually how we bonded on the first movie. Once we both realized we were in recovery together, and we talk all the time. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Michael Faust did the review the other day, and he stole what I thought was my sharp observation, that the influence of Shock Corridor. Is it deliberate, subconscious?
I have never seen Shock Corridor.
There you go. Well, now you know.
Now I'm gonna have to, yeah, because
Samuel Fuller.
yeah, and matter of fact, Steve Baker, the editor, brought it up. You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's just one I haven't seen it, so now I need to see it. But,
All right. My last question for you guys before we turn it over to the crowd. So you co-produced it. You're the lead. You're the director. Who's actually producing? I mean, you guys are doing the two-piece spot.
Yeah, as far as putting it all together up front, that was me. And then boots on the ground during, pre-principal and post, we're total hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder throughout.
We've got people that we've worked with for 15 plus
Yeah.
years in Dallas, DPMs and production coordinators that know us inside out and travel with us and everything. So it was very easy for us to step into our roles during principal photography and
allows
know
for a
it's-
huge economy of motion.
Yeah. Yeah, and just turn it over to them, and we knew the production was running fine. And then once we got into post, once again, it's just back to, he'll come up with an idea, I won't like it, he'll sell me on it, I'll come back with something, I'll come up with something, he doesn't like it, and we've just been friends long enough to be able to find the middle ground that is right for the story, not right for our videos.
Well, I mean, that's something I know about your films are all story based. It never seems to me like your films are meant to fill a time slot or be pigeonholed into, we need this type of film. I feel like the story is
Story
always
is always the most
the
important.
driving force.
Yeah,
Who
absolutely.
has some questions?
Did you do research into schizophrenia and mental hospitals to make it?
I did. So I got a friend who's a forensic psychiatrist. He used to run the Vernon State Hospital in Texas, where in the violent behaviors unit. And he and I had written. It's a unit that houses serial killers and necrophiliacs and cannibals and the whole thing. And he and I had written another screenplay together. So when I was putting this one together, when I was writing this, I had talked with him, and we kind of went through a bunch of stuff. Then, completely coincidentally, so Sam, our DIT, his girlfriend is a forensic psychiatrist that now runs that same unit because Barry had moved on to Yale or to Harvard. And so she actually ended up being with us throughout production and consulting and helping me continue to refine the dialogue that Arnold was giving, the information, all that kind of stuff. She was continuously helping us refine it throughout production.
At any point, have you ever just stopped and said, holy shit, I'm friends with Michael Ironside?
Quite frequently. I just had that, when he was texting me 2 days ago, he was texting me, he's playing JP Morgan in the new Alienist TV series. And he's been shooting in Bulgaria, and he's been texting me pictures of himself getting into makeup and on set. And yeah, those are moments when I'm like, holy shit, I'm friends with Michael Ironside.
You said the movie's 2 hours 5 for now. Is there going to be any more changes to the film itself as opposed to just the color?
We're contemplating that. I mean, at this point, this is definitely the director's cut. We're still kind of batting around whether or not, for business reasons, if we need to trim it down from 200.
My guess is we'll lose about 15 minutes. We already sort of laser focused on where that's going to be, but structurally it'll remain intact.
But I got a feeling, the final version will probably end up at 150, 145.
145 is a drastic cut though.
Yeah. So we're just kind of go in and see. We started talking to some sales agents and distributors, and we've got some big distributors circling it. But one of the feedbacks from pretty much everybody is you gotta get it down. You gotta get it down to, the sweet spot obviously is 90, but at least 145, 150 to really do it. So that's what that was actually funny because we just had those conversations about a week ago, and we've been waiting to come and sit and kind of go, could we lose this? Could we lose that? And we'll kind of see how it goes. But
So
I
if
think
you heard people talking in the movie, it was the director's cut.
so yeah, it'll probably be a little bit short.
Anybody else?
Cool. Thank you so much for coming out.
Keep in mind that you saw the director's cut, and the next time you see the movie, it's going to be a slightly different film. And as we've told everybody through the weekend, please go to IMDb or any of the platforms where you rate films and give you guys a good rating, because that helps with the algorithms and stuff when it comes to marketing films. I want to thank you both for coming. It's always nice to see you, John. I'm so glad you came back. I'll get into it later, but John was a big inspiration for kind of how this festival has evolved. So it's always nice to see his smiling face. Matt, thanks for coming as well. And we got an awards show that we're going to go do now, 6 o'clock. If anyone wants to come watch WBBZ. Otherwise, we're showing Horley Rectory in this theater at the same time. Thank you, everybody.